What's going on, traders? Welcome back to Money Mitch. I know I was out last week. On Tuesday, I was traveling to the office. Monday, no work day. So, hey, we're back at it, guys. We're going to be getting into a great interview today. We'll be doing like we always do, talk some market sentiment, pull out some sector analysis, find the industries that are moving, and then hopefully work into the micro and find the stocks that are moving. Of course, like we always do, we're going to talk about some story stocks. And at the end of our show, our second half of our show is going to be getting into peak performance. If you guys are brand new to the show, this is where we go ahead and talk some trading psychology to up your skill level like we always need to do. So welcome to Money Mitch, and let's get the show started.
It's time for Money Making Mitch. When investors need a story, we're going to the moon. Welcome to Money Mitch, where story is everything. I'm here to find you the next opportunity. It's all about the green hands. Now we all know the bull market is here to stay. Money Mitch.
All right, traders. So up next, I got Ben with me here from StoryTrading. If you guys have not heard about it, I suggest you guys look down and add him on Twitter. One of the things is it's not only that, he talks story stocks. Let's just say that right off the back, but also, and it gives you an ability to have information when a story stock is released. Like we tell you guys out there, come to me with the information. If you guys got a story stock, I want to take a look, just like Ben does also. So how we doing, Ben? Welcome to the show.
Doing great. So glad to be here, Money Mitch. When I saw your show and your focus on story investors and story stocks, I'm like, he thinks just like me, man. We got to get together and talk about trading.
Definitely. Without a doubt, if you think about our day and age and how we really look at stocks nowadays, it's all about story, right? Yeah, we can come and take a look at fundamentals and technicals, but story to the new investor is like liquid gold, I have to say.
Yeah, story is a big part of it. We define it a little bit differently than you, but yeah, when you talk about retail investors, about 30% of trading volume is now retail. And I have to say, I think even institutional investors are impacted by story. You see that in overvaluations of companies like Tesla. You see it in undervaluations of boring companies. So human beings are human beings. They speculate, they're emotional, they get excited about trends. So it's really important to look at a stock holistically. We look at that through the 4 pillars, we call it. You had 3 that you look at. We look at 4. Those 4 pillars of story trading are fundamentals, catalysts, sentiment, and technicals.
Perfect. So let's expand a little bit about that. First, I want to get into a little bit more about, do you really feel markets are efficient? Let's just start there.
I love this topic, man. Efficiency is one of the most exciting topics I talk about. We debate it in our community. We have a community right now. We collaborate on WhatsApp and on Zoom. We have some meetings. We're coming out with our own app shortly. But in that community, we've had multiple discussions and debates about market efficiency. And my contention is that story is part of that efficiency. If a stock is flying because people are excited about it, that's an efficient price action, right? Because at the end of the day, you can trade an asset for what someone else is willing to pay for it. And if a certain percentage of the market is excited about a stock, they have high sentiment, they're speculating about the future, and it's trading at a high valuation, well, that's efficient because those things matter. And the same thing goes for the opposite. So yeah, I think the market is generally efficient. The way I look at efficiency and define it is, are people technically allowed to trade, right? Logistically, are they able to access their computers? Is there liquidity? Can they make the trades they want? And if they do, then the market action is a net representation of all market opinions out there. And that's all that matters.
Yeah, I would have to say, of course, sometimes I do think that we have, I wouldn't say an inefficiency, but I think what happens there is that the market tries to always be ahead of us, right? At least I feel that the market's always trying to be ahead, not at the moment that we see it, right? If it was at perfect present moment, I think, of course, we'd probably have just literally perfect balance between buyers and sellers. So we're always getting a change of information. And with that change of information comes the forward look of the price. And with that being said, I mean, I don't think there's really a moment when efficiency is perfect, because there's always the different changing of supply and demand. So in the end, it just really comes down to that look. How's the supply changing versus the demand? If both are moving in the same direction, of course, we're going to get a really good trend. And if both are starting to conflict, then that's when trends start to change, right? And so I always look at it as, where's the supply going? Where's the demand? And really, I mean, is this kind of a new investor type of stock? Because there's some stocks that are never going to be in favor with the new investor like they were with the old, right? I mean, let's just be as blatant as can be. New investors are looking for stocks that they know. And then they don't trade stocks like, let's say, a stock like GM. I mean, a lot of our parents traded GM, but we're looking at Tesla. We're looking at the new ones, NIO. We're trying to find that new story. So with that being said, you said that the factors that you guys look at are sentiment, technicals, catalyst,
and fundamentals.
And fundamentals. So let's explain a little bit more about those factors and maybe go into each one and what you're looking for, Ben.
Sure. Actually, you know what? If I can share my screen here.
Let's do it.
Sure. Walk through it a little bit more detail. All right. Is that showing up there?
Perfect. There you go.
Right. So quick disclaimer, I'm not an investment advisor, neither is story trading. Investing in securities involves significant risk of loss. So I made a slide here just about this, about the process at story trading. And it's a 3-step process. And you mentioned this yourself. The first step is getting access to that data. So what we do in our community, we discover, collaborate, and validate key data through crowdsourced research and social collaboration. Again, we do that on WhatsApp and Zoom. And we're going to scale that in our own app in the future. Step 2, once you have that data, you want to understand market pricing, aka the story behind the trade, through the lens of those 4 pillars: fundamentals, catalyst, sentiment, and technicals. And then step 3, this is an important part for me, is now visualize that story behind your trade through chart annotations. Understand that history. The key to understanding what can happen in the future is understanding what happened in the past. All my biggest, most successful, most profitable trades always has been when I went back into the history of a chart and I aimed to understand each of the peaks and the troughs. And I got a really good idea of what's the investor community looking at. What are the factors that make the stock go up? What are the factors that make it go down? And once you have that knowledge about a stock, you know how to react when the next catalyst comes, either the anticipation of the catalyst or when that catalyst comes. And you can jump on it with conviction, be on the right side of that trade when the stock reflates, and really nail the timing. I've made a ton of money like that, especially on options. So that's the way I look at it. That's the whole process.
No, definitely. I mean, at the end of the day, I've seen it myself. I mean, when we are with the right timing with the story, and especially when everything lines up, when you get the fundamentals, you're getting analyst price raises, you're getting everybody to start the coverage. And like, it's like always, like sometimes you're on that trade. Next thing you know, you see CNBC covering it. You're like, oh, now you guys want to cover it. Of course, when it starts to trend. And that's what we're looking for, guys. We're trying to get into the right story. I like how you mentioned, not only looking at where the story is now, but where the story was in the past. How did the catalyst affect the stock in the past? Because this can definitely give you signs to look for the future, like you're clearly stating here. Let's keep going. Let's go into a little bit more. So what impact does retail now really have with that 30% of trading volume? And are the stories really that important here?
I think it's huge. I mean, listen, I always thought that even the institutional investors are doing a lot of speculation, right? They get excited, they get depressed. We saw this in 1998. You saw it wasn't just retail buying, the whole internet boom, but there were companies that were bought for tens of billions of dollars that were worthless. And that's because institutional investors and other corporations, they were excited about the internet and they quote unquote overpaid, right? But is it really overpaying when the whole market has the same outlook and the whole market has the same sentiment and the whole market is trying to forward look and trying to anticipate future earnings? Is that really overpaying? And, I would say no, that's just part of the story. That's investing is speculation. So that's part of it.
Definitely, I have to agree. I mean, when you look at stocks that don't, let's say, match the necessary early fundamental knowledge, right? I mean, if we stick to that kind of knowledge, I don't think we're ever going to adapt to the way that the new market moves. And one of the things that we look forward is that we've always kind of looked at price and earnings ratios, right? Forward looking, right? And they always come back to it. I mean, they're like, oh, 30 times X or 10 times X. Value trade. No, what it really comes down to it is how much the investor is willing to pay.
Exactly.
Because if they're willing to pay and continue paying up because they want to be a part of the investment, they don't want to miss out on the investment, that's when you start seeing stocks. It doesn't match the fundamentals. It's basically being pushed because of the story. And that's why I look for story stocks. I mean, at the end of the day, we want to be where the momentum is. And now retail is creating momentum, which was kind of unheard of, let's say 10 years ago or 20 years, right, Ben?
Yeah. Only caveat to that, I would say the story, I think, are people trying to get ahead of the fundamentals. Like for those people who are pure fundamental investors and they want to kind of dismiss sentiment or something. Sentiment is a mechanism whereby you're speculating on future fundamentals. It's people who are really bullish about what's the future, industry going to look like in the next 5 years. What's the world going to look like in the next 5 years? And there's people speculating out there that the TAM is going to be much larger, that this company is going to get a huge market share. That's also fundamentals. It's just people speculating on fundamentals in the future.
Agreed. So let's look at it a little bit closer there. For sentiment, how do you define exactly sentiment?
That's a great question. I think of sentiment as it's not just an emotional factor. Some people think, oh, it's on like a stock twitch. It's a bullish or bearish tag because the stock's up today, I'm bullish. The stock is down today, I'm bearish. No, that's not sentiment. Sentiment is actually real. Meaning when I say real, it's important, it's meaningful. It's your opinion on management is part of sentiment. Your opinion on the sector, how big is it? How fast is it going to be growing? Maybe your opinion on the most recent conference call. Are these guys executing? Your opinion on the most recent news release. Is this a meaningful, impactful news release that's going to impact future fundamentals? And these are all things that I think are part of sentiment. I think it can be quantified. I think it's important. And I think it can even be used as a corrective factor on traditional metrics such as PE ratios and PEG ratios.
All right, so just to kind of give you a little bit of a fastball here, we've been talking about its story, and we've been talking about the different aspects and how you guys differ from, let's say, the way that I approach it here on Money Mitch. But let's talk about an actual stock, maybe an actual story. Do you got one for us that you can maybe bring?
Sure. Can we throw my screen up again?
Yeah, let's bring it right up here.
All right. So Aehr Test Systems, I've been on Power Hour like 4 or 5 times actually with
hey, Robert's here for it. He knows it.
Yeah, Hot Stock Sleuths and producer AB. So Aehr Test Systems, I got into the stock at like $2.70. I'm still holding. It's like $12. This is a chart I shared with Benzinga. Let me just see if it comes up. Okay, this is a chart I shared with Benzinga when I presented like 4 or 5 weeks ago. And the key was, again, understanding the past. So what happened here? Why did the stock, rise up, peak there, and then kind of crash, right? And understanding that allowed me to get in here. And what was it that I understood? I understood that was a large order. It was from Apple, but it was not a sustainable order that was recurring revenue. It was a one-time order based on sampling of their products, okay? And this was the big sentiment against the stock for many years, is that their customers are only going to use their product for sampling, not for production. I don't have time to get into everything they do, but it makes a big difference in terms of recurring revenue. So once I understood that this is what the market hates about this stock, I knew that once that was cured, the market would love the stock. And the stock was about right under 3 when the news releases came out, very specific language that there's going to be significant recurring orders with this new customer, which ends up being Tesla. They don't name Tesla, but it's obvious it's Tesla for their electric cars, right? So once we knew that, hey, this is different than the past, this is recurring revenue for production runs, I loaded up as much as I could under $3. I'm still holding the stock now. It's over $12 or 11.60, 11.80 today.
Definitely. I've been watching this one and the call also.
Yeah.
Didn't seeing it move, and I agree with you. When you see a stock, and that's the story, I always tell people look for the story to change, because
Exactly.
story will change, and you need to know that so that when the story change happens, you know if it's going to affect the stock bullish or bearish. I completely agree. I mean, that's a lot of the times what happens. A lot of the times it could be one factor that's holding back the stock. And with that one factor that is released, now the stock is viewed completely different.
There it is. And you can see it right there with that chart.
Oh, it's
They just
taking
had,
off.
last week they had a biggest order in company history, a $19.4 million order. They've done $41 million in orders in about 100 days. And when when this started, the run started, the market cap was like 80 million. So it's in a hot sector, electric vehicles, semiconductors. This could keep going.
Definitely. I mean, that's what it's about. It's about trying to find these stories before they take off. And one of the best ways to take that approach is to understand the stock in the past. Understand how the catalyst has affected it in the past. I'd like how you pointed out how that Apple news was there, but expected it to come back down because it wasn't a confirmed thing. It was kind of that momentum pop. Look for that pullback to come in. And as you guys can see from that moment, I mean, hey, if you would have been waiting for that pullback, hey, you've seen the gains on there. But thank you for coming on, Ben. We'll be coming back to you. And whenever you got a story stock and you want to bring it on here on Money Mitch, let me know. We'll definitely present it. I appreciate you coming on. If you guys haven't checked it out, there you guys have his tag right there. StoryTrading, Story Investors. I think there's some similarity there, guys.
I think so.
You guys let us know what you guys think
Match made in
about the
heaven.
story approach.
Thank you.
I would love to hear a little bit more. You guys hit up Ben. Let me know how you guys think about the story approach, because I don't think we're new to this. And I think you're going to be hearing a lot more of education come towards more of the story side and how we can put it all together in one package and not look at one side of the variable, but try to combine these variables to give us a better probability. Right.
Absolutely.
In the end, that's what the goal is, right, Ben? Is to just increase the probability and being in the good group of stocks, because there's always going to be that group of stocks that have the story, have the sentiment, have the technicals, the catalysts, and the fundamentals for us to go off of.
Yep. Absolutely.
Thank you for coming on, Ben. We'll bring you back.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.